Good afternoon, everybody. This is Hamza and David Thompson with Intrinsic Motivation from a homie's perspective. And it is Sunday. It is September 10th, the day before America's forever changed, if you will. And we want to talk about a lighter side of the beginning of life, if you will. We have Louise Self here. She is a licensed midwife with High Desert Midwifery in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And she's going to tell us all about the world of being a midwife. So welcome to the podcast, Louise.
Hello. Thank you very much. How are you doing? Please excuse my voice. I'm a little under the weather, so I don't sound like myself very much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's nice for you to be here.
Yeah.
So this is the first time we've talked about the subject about midwifery or working with midwives at all. So I'm really excited about talking with you because I'm going to learn a lot today. I have a little notepad open. So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the business.
Well, I'm originally from England. If you go back to how I landed here in America, that's usually a big question for many people because I have a funny accent. I think, along the path of becoming a midwife, I used to work in the hospital as a medical assistant and as a nursing assistant, and I just sort of was trying to find my path, just a little lost, what I want to do. And when I was pregnant with my first child, Oliver, who's going to be 13 next month, his birth really awoke in me and opened my eyes to maternity care, in general, and especially in the United States, and how women are treated and how babies were greeted when they were born, and just going through the standard hospital birth. It really kind of shook me to the core. I was not prepared for that and how I reacted and how I felt. And so, his birth was really traumatic. It was a hard one, which, looking back, I can say I'm very grateful for that hard birth because Oliver has taught me a lot. I really believe children are here to teach us just as much as we are to share with children or, wisdom and whatnot. So years later, after I healed from, emotionally from that birth, I just got really involved in just taking care of mothers and being an advocate for just basic things like breastfeeding in public and how women feel shamed. And I became a doula, and I supported women in the hospital to try and help them find a voice and be an advocate for themselves. And that kind of led me down the path of when I had my second child 5 years after Oliver, I had a home birth with him, and that really, I took back my power, and after that I was like, okay, I know what I need to be doing. I need to be a midwife. This is definitely, it was a huge validation, right? A big spiritual validation for me is like, this is what you're supposed to be doing, So that then began the path of becoming a home birth midwife.
Wow.
And there's lots of options, different routes to becoming a midwife. But I really love home birth. Home birth is in my heart.
Wow.
That's in a nutshell. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You mentioned when you were saying all this that you were a doula. Now, I've heard that term before. What exactly is a doula?
A doula is just is someone who's there at the birth who just offers a lot of emotional support and physical support. They don't do any medical, like listening to the heartbeat, taking blood pressure. They don't do any sort of like cervical exams, checking dilation or things like that. It's just emotional. If a mom's having a lot of back labor, for example, they know how to, apply like hip pressure and stuff to help relieve back labor. So that's all doulas do. They help moms kind of advocate. It's just like they're holding the space, basically. It's much different than a midwife. Obviously, I have way more responsibility. I do all sorts of stuff. I have to do a lot of clinical decision-making, making sure moms are healthy, making sure their labs look good, listening to heart tones, which is the baby's heartbeat, and just monitoring the normal aspects of labor. So there's a lot of heavy responsibility.
Yeah.
Way more than a doula. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Would you say that's the natural progression? Most people would go from becoming a doula to a midwife?
No, I don't think so. I think it depends. I think there's a lot of, because mainly women are midwives. There are some male midwives out there, but a lot of midwives, they just, women go right to school. They just, out of high school, they go right to school. They just, they buckle down, do the work. Either they come as C&M or they go other routes. But I think for a lot of midwives, their path kind of takes them through this meandering, forest, so to speak, of which just, I think a lot of it's spiritual awakening. When women awake to their own strengths and their own power, it's like, wow, oh my gosh, why does this take me so long to get here? And a lot of midwives start as doulas or birth assistants or just attending friends' births before they even get down the path of midwifery. That's kind of what happened with me. I meandered around for a while, just sort of lost, like deer in headlights. Like, what is going on? What is my purpose in this world? So, yeah.
Wow. How much training goes in to become, how long and what kind of training do you have to get to become a midwife?
There's different routes to becoming a midwife. There's the certified nurse midwife, which is mainly a hospital-based provider and birth center birth provider. You have to become an RN, so you have a couple years of going through the nursing school. And then you have to go through midwifery school, which I think is 2 to 3 years, depending on what school and what path. There's all different routes of, with fast-paced, slow-paced. And I think it's, it must be 2 to 3 years. But it's a master's. You have to get your master's, become a certified nurse midwife. And a certified nurse midwife is different in the aspect that they have prescribing privileges is the main thing. So they can write prescriptions for antibiotics or birth control, those type of things. They have more, more power, not like a doc, but they certainly have more power in the sense than what I do, because I'm a licensed midwife. And so my route, I chose to become kind of a traditional midwife. I wanted to steer away from the hospital. It's never been for me. I've tried really hard to fit the mold, and I've always kind of gotten myself in trouble because I spent too much time with my patients. I was, that human connection, that spiritual connection, I would always get myself in trouble because you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be in and out, get your turning done and blah, blah, blah. So I really wanted to pass on the wisdom of midwifery and the spiritual side, the when you put your hands on a mom's baby and you're feeling a baby, you're not just feeling the position of the baby. You're not just, which position is the baby in? And, baby's head down. It's you're connecting with that baby. You're saying hello to that baby. It's not just its physical thing, which a lot of that stuff gets lost in the medical model training in my mind. I really see the disconnect. And it's not with all nurse midwives. There's so many great nurse midwives out there who get it. But I really wanted to pass on this tradition, using herbs and homeopathy and just how amazing our touch is. And so I trained with a midwife that's been practicing in my community. Well, I think it was 33 years before she retired. And I think she attended almost 3,000 home births. And she had the touch. She had a lot of information that I really wanted to learn from her. And I honestly think, her and I had a lot of past agreements that we hadn't settled. So there was a lot of weird push-pull in the spiritual sense of me finding my voice. Dave and I have been friends for a long time, so I think David has seen me grown in many ways as far as my path and as a person and just finding your voice is a huge thing, and where you're supposed to be in life. And she passed on some amazing wisdom, and just watching her at birth and holding space and just all the wisdom she passed on, like, we got to keep that going. It's dying. People are losing that touch with the spiritual side and with confidence in our bodies and trusting our bodies. That, a lot of women, like, Google everything. They can't look inside themselves. They look outside of themselves all the time, which has been a huge shift since we have, internet and social media. It's kind of gotten out of control in my mind. Like Dr. Google. Yeah. So and I love being a home birth midwife. I love having my own practice. I love providing the care I do. It's a very small practice. Every client I see, each visit's an hour long. It's not just blood pressure check and a belly check. It's like, how are you doing today? What's going on in your life? There's a lot more to do with pregnancy than just the physical parts. I get to control how I do things. I can spend as much time as I want with clients. In the hospital, you don't as much. You have, on the labor and delivery ward, you have maybe 6 or 7 patients in labor at once, and so you're bouncing between all of them. Which I just can't do that type of care. That's just not for me,
Yeah.
And it's having a small home birth practice. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work running your business. You do everything. I do everything. I'm the secretary. I do the billing. Everything. I do it on my own. So, and there's not a lot of money in being a home birth midwife. You do it for the love. You do it because you want to provide this care. But you can make a good amount of money. It depends on how you view what you're worth and how you attract that. So a certified nurse midwife in the hospital typically makes $90,000 a year, depending on where you're at. Which people are like, God, don't you want to do that? Don't you just want to go and have like a 12-hour shifts and clock in and clock out and not be on call? And I was like, no, I really don't. I don't. That's not for me. That money does not attract me to that type of, environment and working like that. I just, I don't do it. I do it because I love it. And when you love something, the money will flow. Yeah. So, and I have some really wonderful clients that really make me very happy to come into work. So that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you have that balance of understanding. There has to be a certain amount of fulfillment in something that you're doing. It just can't be all just doing it for the money. Exactly.
I am not into this. Got to do it for the money all the time. Like you need to be really happy about what you create. So, and I've gotten really good at creating a lot of stuff in my life. So, it's fun. It's really fun.
Do you remember the first time the first birth that you did on your own, or the first time that? Were you nervous, or had you been involved in enough?
I was.
Were you?
Well, I was nervous. It was. I had finished with my apprenticeship that I had done with Barb. It was almost 3 years long. So the first birth I did, I had another assistant there, but I was in my own practice. It was my first full birth. There was no preceptor to that security that you could just turn around and ask questions. That's when it hit me. I was like, oh, this is it. This is heavy. I am so responsible. I was like, I have to trust myself. I have to trust my judgment. And I had to sit there. I remember sitting there and just grounding myself. And I was like, okay, all right. So what is this? What fear is coming up? What is it? And it was just self-doubt, that I was dealing with. And so once I kind of got my feet under me again, I was like, no, I know. If I don't know the answer, I'll call up somebody, right? But I have to trust myself and trust the mom and trust the baby. And once I moved past that, I was okay. But it was an interesting feeling, kind of like, there's nothing I can do now. I'm here. I'm in it, you know. So, but since then, you know, I've done births by myself with no assistance present, and you know, and a lot of times babies come really fast, and so you barely make it half the time to home birth. But yeah, I remember that mama. She just had her second baby in Texas. So
wow. Well,
yeah.
you might not have experienced it quite yet, but I imagine it'll be a trip one day when you meet, you know, someone that you gave birth to, who's like an adult already, you know.
Yes.
It'd be a trip.
Yes.
Like, gave birth, you know. I delivered that child.
Right. Yeah, that was Barb. She was delivering the baby. The baby she delivered, and she's like, I think it's time for me to retire. But yeah, that making a full circle, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
You said the baby came fast. So
a lot of babies come fast.
Why is there a difference in the you know, you hear some mothers always are like, I was in labor for 3 years to birth you.
I know.
You know?
Yeah.
So why is it so much faster when it's a home birth?
I think a lot of moms are very comfortable in their own space. They're already planning to birth there. You know, a lot of times labor catches them by surprise because they're so comfortable and they're surrendered to the process that before they know it, like active labor can kick in on a dime. Like it can change in a matter of minutes. Like you can have contractions that are like 10 minutes apart and you're just like, you know, I think I'm in labor, and an hour later you're pushing your baby out. So it's not uncommon for moms to like, I don't know what this is. And I'm like, okay, well, let me know, especially if you're a second baby, if things change. And so a lot of times, if they've had a traumatic past birth, they tend to not call until the last minute because they feel like they don't want to waste my time. It's interesting. They don't want to waste my time from being there too long, or they don't want to bother me. So they've had a lot of like emotional trauma where they felt like they were bothering the staff or whatever was going on. But, and I think a lot of times I really like it when babies come before the midwife because the mother gets this huge validation. It's like, yes, you can deliver your own baby. No, we don't always have to be here. You know, you see these stories, mother born on the airplane, and the flight attendants knew what to do. And it's like, mom knows what to do. What about the mom? No one's talking about the mom.
Yeah.
You know, it's just constantly taken away from the mom all the time, you know.
Wow.
So I love it when a mom's like, I just caught my baby, or the dad helped, and they did it on their own. Like, it's not my birth. It's not my power. It's not my experience. It's the mom and the dad and the baby. That's their joy, you know. And I trust almost all the time there's no complications when a baby comes that fast. With that being said, I do believe if a midwife needs to be present for something because there is a complication that's going to occur, the baby will wait. The mom will wait. They won't feel safe. They'll hold on. They'll just wait. You know, they just have this little like check. You know, I experienced that with my second, and it was a home birth. And he was coming mighty fast, and I was in disbelief. And I remember, you know, I'm in the birth pool. I'm like, oh, my God, I have to push. Where's the midwives? You know, my husband's like, oh, catch it, no problem, I'll help you. I'm like, okay. So, you know, the next big contraction happens, and I'm like, oh, God, I'm going to push. And then this big voice says to me, you need to wait. And I was like, oh, my God, what was that? And I was like, okay. And I'm like, what's going on? You know, in my head, I'm like, what is happening? And, you know, and so I'm like, this baby sitting right there. It's so hard not to push, you know, when your baby's right there. And my husband's like, well, I'll help you. It's okay. And so next contraction comes around and the same thing. And this voice says, you need to wait for the midwives. And I said, I can't have this baby. I got to wait. And you know what? God was talking to me. He was like, you need to wait. Ooh, because I've never heard a voice like that in my life. This huge, like, energy was in the room. And so as soon as the midwives walked in, I had him. But I also had a really bad hemorrhage. I needed the midwives to help control my hemorrhage. So I truly believe when moms get all the fear out their face and they really can tune in and listen, they'll know. Their gut, their intuition will talk to them. You know, I'm a firm believer of that. And I don't tell that story to everybody because people get really fearful. Oh, my God, you bled? What happened? What? You know, it's like, I'm fine. I trusted my midwife. I trusted the experience. No, I didn't feel very good because I lost a lot of blood. But the key to the story is that I listened to that voice. And I don't go to church. I don't have to go to church to believe in God and the bigger spirit. But boy, oh boy, was he in that room. I can't even describe it. It was just huge. And when you're about to push a baby out, you're so vulnerable and you're so open, spiritually open. Like you can just see the channel, right? Like the space is amazing to be in. And so, that's every time I think about it, it gives me these major goosebumps. But
let me ask you this. Of course, I know people get born every day and they're delivered, but I guess really and I know that you, even though I've known you and I know that you've been doing this for a while, it's kind of fascinating hearing you talk about it. I never really heard you talk about it in depth like this. So at what point in the process do you personally start becoming aware of that spirit that's going to take that body of the person that you're working with, the client?
That's an
I mean, is there a degree of communication that you have with that spirit? Are you aware of that or no? Or
I am. It comes in waves. Sometimes it's interesting because I was thinking about this before our call today. And there's times when I'm really super aware and in that spiritual space and I can see what's going on. A lot of times it's hard when I have a lot of other people in the room, other midwives, other attendants whose energy is filling up the room, and I'm constantly having to hold the space to make room for that baby. Do you know what I mean? Like when there's a lot of So right when the baby's born, that instant, as soon as their face hits the air, they take their big breath, they fill their lungs, they start crying, and a lot of babies are born very calm, where they're like, what's the big deal? You guys were all tripping out, and sometimes they're just not in their body. They're born and they're just like, no, I don't want to be here, and they're floating above their body, and it's like, okay. Anytime now, you're welcome to come in this body. So a lot of times it's like, okay, got to ground everybody now, ground the baby, ground the mom, ground the other midwife that's with me. Let's hold the space for everybody. It gets really intense, but usually just a really big hello, right? That usually the baby comes right in. But when the babies are just floating there, right above their body, and everybody's just like in that space, and it's like, okay, come on, are you going to come in now? Because you're freaking everybody out in the room because you're supposed to be acting a certain way and breathing and wailing your arms around and all this other stuff. So I do see that. I see a lot of interesting shift in moms. I've seen moms who've had like a history of bipolar disorder. I had a mom in particular years ago in a hospital, and I saw the moment when she left her body and another entity came in. It was trippy. Yeah, that was intense. No one else noticed, obviously, but I did. It was like, oh, there she goes. Oh, hello, who are you? But holding the space at birth, and sometimes babies take a while to sort of just get in their body and just, transition. It's not just a physical transition. It's a lot of spiritual transition. And, and just having a quiet environment where the mom and baby can bond and talk to each other. I mean, the birth space can be really rushed sometimes.
Yeah.
A lot of happening, a lot of stimulation and all this stuff. And it's like, no, you just have to talk to the baby, really. You don't really have to do very much. And the baby will tell you. If you listen, the baby will tell you. The baby has a lot to say.
Yeah. What's that like when And I guess, every birth could be different, and how present a baby is right at birth or right after it could be different. But maybe it's just because I've seen it on TV, so I don't know how real it is. But those times when that baby opens its eyes and it's like looking right at you, and even though it's a little baby, it's like it's an adult, like this person's just staring you right now. What is that like?
Oh, man, that is beautiful. That big, like, oh, hi. Yeah, big hello. And, I train my students, like you don't just do things to babies. Like, talk to them. Say hello. You have to say hello. You have to validate them. Talk to them before you give them the vitamin K shot. Like, hey, this is what this is. Because you know what? Most of my babies don't cry when I do things to them. Yeah. And people are like, what do you do? Oh, you have the magic touch. I said, doesn't take much. You just talk to the baby. It's very simple. You just talk to this little baby. But like that big hello, it's just like, oh, I'm here, it's just huge spirit. It's like just talking right to your soul. It's such an amazing space. Yeah, I love it. I love birth. I love it. I love everything that comes with it.
It sounds like you can really change the mindset of the traditional mindset is that it's so hard to incarnate, right? And it's so easy when you transition. But you're saying that it doesn't have to be hard either way.
I don't think it has to be hard either way. I think there's a lot of pictures that comes along with babies and moms, dealing with, oh my gosh, dealing with moms' pictures of like, well, my mother had a cesarean and her mother did and her mother had these complications, so I'm most likely going to have them. Like, no, here we go. Now we're going to deprogram you. It's like, get rid of all those pictures because that's not the truth. That's not your truth, So a lot of prenatal care is getting rid of all that years and years and generations of trauma that gets carried on, and seeing the same repeating pattern. It's, my brother and his wife are newly pregnant, and she's experiencing that right now, that she's going through some, my mom had these problems, so I think I might need to go to an obstetrician and get some, different care because I'm most likely going to develop the same thing. I'm like, well, no, you're not actually. You're not. You're not destined to follow your mother's path, I lost my train of thought. I don't know where I was going with all this. Sorry, I tend to ramble on. I get so excited. I get really excited about birth. Oh, my gosh.
It makes me think from an educational standpoint whether or not you add an additional service to teach them or, teach your patients to hold space or know more about energy so it's not so foreign.
Yeah, there's a lot of clients who would be very open to that, and there's a lot that really I don't think would be as open, but I think wording it in the right context. So I have a lot of very religious families who, pastors and whatnot and pull on God. So I don't want to seem, quote, witchy, because some folks, home birth, midwifery can seem quite witchy, because we have, you can't have too much power, right? Oh my gosh, we can't know more than a medical model because we don't have their training, it's very different. So there was an element of that going on. I just do it in a different way with a lot of clients. So I sort of meet them where they're at. If that makes any sense, One client would be way more open to energy. I have one mom in particular that's so aware of her energy now and just what's happening with this pregnancy. Very, very different than like another couple who, has her Bible verses out and, she's very linear in that aspect of I don't know, just very different people. I have a new student that she hasn't met almost all the clients because I have some that would really panic because of her appearance and whatnot because they're very conservative. It's very interesting. I have a wonderful, wonderful array of families I take care of. I love it. I think it's fun. It's really fun. It's really fun meeting all these different families and where they're from and what they're looking for.
You mentioned after your, I think it was after your first, with Oliver, right? After that was a real traumatic experience, and that's kind of what, after that, thrusted you in the direction of natural births and becoming a midwife. Do you notice a common, like the women that come to you and decide that they want to have a home birth, is it kind of a similar experience, would you say? Or what's thrusting them in that direction? Do you notice anything common, or is it kind of all over the map for the reasons why they want to have a home birth?
I think a lot of women who it's for their first pregnancy, they've already kind of have found their power and their voice and what they'd like. They're a little bit more solid in, I want a natural birth. I want to do it my way. I trust my body. I really don't want to be in the hospital. I don't want to be told what to do. That's usually the theme that I hear. And I think a lot of moms, it takes them a while to get to home birth because either their partner doesn't feel comfortable with home birth, they don't really trust it. They're like, what about the what if? What if something goes wrong? What if? But eventually, women will find like their power and they'll reclaim that birth space. And some moms, it takes a long time to get there, to reclaim that birth space, and so like they can have it, that they're allowed, right? They're allowed to have their birth space back. They don't have to have permission, and that's a huge thing. And so it's quite a enjoyable thing when moms come around for their third or fourth. It's like, okay, this time I really want to do this my way. I trust my body. And so they're spending a lot of time just reconnecting with their spirit and their selves and their own power, I really discourage moms from Googling and searching on the internet and joining all these moms groups online all the time, because we're becoming so disconnected from ourselves that everybody's just lost right now. They're just sort of like lost. Just walking around with like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what this is. I'm going to Google it real quick. And then Google has 50 million explanations of this one thing, and then you have anxiety and fear stirring up. So I love it when moms come around. They're like, I can see the growth, right? Their spiritual growth is happening. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah. So would you say the majority of your clients have, when they come to you, they decide they want to have, do a home birth, they've already had a child already? I mean, I guess, or how many of your clients, it's their first time come to you as their first child?
Right now, I think I have 1, 2, 3. I think I only have 3 or 4 first-time moms, and the rest are all multips. They've already had 2 or more children already. Yeah. And so for them, it's they've already had a home birth, or they've had a birth center birth.
Oh, okay.
Or they've had unassisted birth. There's a huge community of unassisted birthers in Albuquerque that just do it themselves.
Yeah. So was she your midwife for your second child?
Yeah, she was. Yep. Yeah, she was.
Were you already training with her at that time, or no?
No, I wasn't. I had this plan. I really, when we got pregnant with Ben, I was like, I already knew who I was going to go see. I just seeked her out, I just felt like a big match with her energy. I just needed her. I don't know. She's a very gentle, big heart, kind woman, but she's also very stern and what's the word? She's very type A, so which is like complete opposite for me, because I'm very, very much go with the flow. So, but yeah, and I needed that experience with her, and I trust her. She's a really good midwife. She makes really good decisions in emergencies and things like that. That's probably why I had her, when I needed that help. And so after I had Ben, I wanted to start a pregnancy with her after a year, and she says, no, you need to wait. I want you to wait another year. Wait till you wean Ben. I don't want you to start yet. And so it's interesting because she would always be really hard on me, But the other student whose baby was 7 months old, she wasn't. I don't know if it's because the other student was very persistent and really pushed to get her apprenticeship. And so, I'm like, okay, well, I'll just wait. I'll just focus on my doula business and just really make connections with all the providers in the hospitals and just develop this relationship so that people knew who I am when I become a home birth midwife. And so I'm very patient. And so then it came time where I was like, okay, now I'm ready. It's almost like Padawan. I don't know if you're ready yet. It was like this whole like balance of, well, let's see. Are you ready? And so finally, she's like, okay, I'll take you. And so there was 2 of us, and the other students didn't finish her apprenticeship. She only made it a year, and she had to quit. And so I continued on. But it was a really intensive apprenticeship, I did everything with her, all the home births, all the visits, all the prenatals, all the emergency visits, all the phone calls, everything. And she taught me how to run a practice, and I just learned so much from her. But it was a really intense apprenticeship, and I just can't help think that her and I have some past life stuff. Yeah. So we were dealing with. Oh my goodness. Yeah, she was especially hard on me, but I made it. I completed my apprenticeship, so yeah, that has a lot to say, I think.
One day, down the line, a woman's gonna walk through the doors to, wanting to become a midwife, and you're gonna look at her, and it's gonna remind you of you, 30 years.
Oh, I already have one of those students right now who is a reflection of myself 10 years prior. I kid you not. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why am I working with my previous self? Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's just like, and even my colleague, because I work in the same building as another midwife who was my midwife, and Mary Lou, and she said that. She's like, does she remind you of you? Yeah. And I was like, yes, she does. Because Mary Lou has known me since I had Oliver, and she remembers me when I was very quiet, kind of shy, sort of afraid, just like afraid to say anything. And now I'm just come a long way. I've really found my voice, and I have a lot to say now, And a lot of it is just validation along the way, just validating, right? It doesn't take much to validate a spirit, to validate somebody. I had so much of lack of that growing up, it was really hard to come around the other way,
Into your own.
I think, yeah, my great-grandmother, going back to when I was real young, when I was 4 or 5, she was very spiritual, would always read her little daily Bible verses or whatever, and we'd lay in bed and she would tell me, just stuff about the world and God, and, stories of her dead husband coming to visit her in her room, and the room smelling like roses, and I was always enamored by her, and the more validation that I got from that, then I was really starting to see spirits around the house. And the lady that killed herself in the gas oven in my nan's house, she would walk up and down the hallway, and I would start seeing her a lot, and my nan was like, oh yes, don't you worry, that is Mary, she's killed herself. But my grandmother was like, oh no, that's no, I don't know, you're making stuff up again, so I always had my nan that was always like, of course would that be, so yeah. And then I spent a lot of my years growing up just floating outside of my body. I would just watch myself all the time. I was just watch myself, just hang out in my body, and I would get in trouble all the time because I wasn't paying attention, but I knew what I was doing. I was just having fun, just sort of not being present, I guess. But yeah, so it sort of led me down this path, and I don't do as many healings as I had been in the past, but I think every time, I put my hands on a mom or a baby, there's healing that's happening, or even if they're in the room, or I'll think about somebody. I love thinking about people when they call me. I love it. It's such a fun game. Right, David? Yeah. It's such a fun game when I'm like, oh, I need to talk to David. I should tell him what's going on. And then David will ring me. It's such a great game. talking to babies. So I have 5 moms that are due here soon. They're all coming into their due date window. So I'm like telling these babies, y'all just need to take your turn. I cannot be everywhere at once. You're just going to have to just take your turn and talk to each other, because that would be great, you know. So I have a lot more faith and trust in you know, I'll be at the births. Some midwives get kind of panicked and they'll find backups. I have a backup, but I still believe and trust in, you know, I'll be there. I don't worry about stuff too much.
Have you ever been a part of a painless birth?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I've had a couple where moms are like, I don't know, she's like, I think I'm in labor. The baby's head's right there. I'm like, oh, I should come over. And I know, like literally, she's like, oh, she's on the toilet, and the baby's head's right there. I'm like, okay, I'll just be right over. And so, yeah, she was like 9 centimeters, and she's like, I don't even know what's going on. I said, well, you're doing great. I said, you know, eventually you're going to have to create some stronger contractions, you know, so that you can have a baby. And then, you know, usually an hour, then she's like, oh, okay. And then an hour later we'll have a baby. But a lot of women are so unaware of what that even is. Like, there's a lot of women feel like childbirth is just screaming and you're on your back and it's just so painful and just, you know, it's really intense and a lot of fear around it. But I remind women, it's like, you know, I said, okay, you got to stop watching TV, because that's just not really the truth, you know. Yeah. And you know, you have to start going in within. You really need to start connecting with yourself and find your own path. And it's just a surrendering. You surrender to birth. You surrender to labor. You surrender. You have to surrender. You can't fight it. And the more you surrender, the more peace you have, the more validation, the more space you make. You know, a lot of women really enjoy their labors. It doesn't mean it's not necessarily less intense or painful, but you can really love your labor. So some women will have orgasmic births, you know, where they'll have orgasms. And I have not been present. Yeah, I have not been present at one yet. I know of a good friend in my community who's had one. And, like, you really got to be loving that.
Wow.
What's that?
I've never heard that before. Wow.
Yeah, there's a whole movie, Orgasmic Birth, that just documents different women who have experienced just delightful birthing atmosphere. You know, they just really enjoy it. They love it. And the space is so different. And it makes a lot of people uncomfortable. They're like, this is really weird. But, you know, it's okay, so that is what got the baby in there to begin with, right? The love, the connection, you know, so people forget. Yeah. I tell clients, love is what's going to get that baby out. Kiss, be close, get the oxytocin flowing. Contractions is just a different way to look at it. It's just the love hormone that's created when we kiss and we love each other. It's just in a bigger realm of things. It's just helping your baby come out. So when I phrase it in that way, they're like, oh, well, that's not scary. I'm like, well, there you go. Because that's what it is. Yeah. It's, you know, so there's a lot of working with moms, and reading them, a lot of reading them. You know, when I screen, when people come to me for consults, when they're looking at home births, it goes both ways. Like, if someone isn't a good fit for me either, I can see it right away, you know, right away. And I'm a little bit more, I don't know what's the word, not cautious, but just more aware of it, and I can choose who I attract to my practice and who attracts me to them, you know, for the right working relationship, because it's such an intimate thing, because I am the lead midwife and I have 2 students. Well, I have 3 really, but she's about to graduate. That's kind of fun. That's kind of fun, because I always encourage moms, like, go around, find, you know, check out the other midwives, see who you make a good connection with, and there's some I'm like, no, this is not a good fit at all. And I'll tell them this is not a good fit, or, you know, I'll just, you know, spiritually send them a little note saying, hey, you should really check out so-and-so, because I think you'll be a really good fit for them. Yeah. You know? So, but that's the joy of having my own practice, you know, and every home birth midwife does things slightly different, and which is the joy of it. There's a right midwife for every couple. It's so fun.
I have a question about relationships and how relationships change over time. So, once upon a time, there were two separate camps between the medical community and the chiropractic community, and that relationship has since changed. I mean, it's not all kumbaya now, but there are more medical entities that look at chiropractic care as complementary. And what do you see as far as relationships growing between home birth and going the traditional route?
I think there's always going to be a separation. There's always going to be the medical model who will do their thing, and they're very comfortable and feel safe with having the hospital there, having the machines that go bing, like Monty Python, and just, that sense. And there's a lot of providers who are very supportive at a hospital birth. They're very supportive of home birth. And there's a lot of providers that really are not. They don't like it. They disagree. And so a lot of times we don't work with them, obviously. They don't work with us. But we're slowly building bridges. There's a hospital here in Albuquerque where a doc is working on the Home Birth Summit, which is creating bridges for transfer of care from home to hospital or birth center to hospital, and creating like a smoother transition, and just really being there for the moms, taking away our egos of our fighting, of our differences, and just like, okay, you're in here because you need the medical model now. So what can we do to facilitate a smoother transition? So it's a huge work in progress. It's a huge work in progress, and it's going to take a long time before, if this hospital ever will allow to give licensed midwives hospital privileges, because privileges means I can walk into a hospital and clock in and deliver a baby. I don't have those privileges, If I go in with a client, I'm just there to advocate and be their voice and help them make decisions. I have occasionally caught a baby in the hospital because they just come so fast. I've done that. That's happened a number of times. And the staff is like, oh, thank goodness you're here. That baby came fast. But yeah, I think slowly building bridges. I think New Mexico is one of the best places for midwifery care for out-of-hospital birth. The history goes way back to the curanderas, the pateras, like up north, like in the rural communities where you have like an elder woman in the community, like a granny midwife, or just grandma down the street who just has all this knowledge. It comes back to that intuition and knowledge. Like you're sick, you go see Jesusita down the road, or you're pregnant, go see her. She'll take care of you. And she wasn't even licensed. She just did it. And she was trusted. And then I forget what year it was. I have to look up the actual history of it. I meant to look that up for you. But the state encouraged all the women that were community midwives to come to a training. The states paid these women to go through like basic training, like hand washing, how to tie up a cord and be clean, and sterilization and stuff like that, with instruments. And then they talked women into being licensed. So that happened, and then became the licensure in New Mexico. So now we have licensed midwives who are licensed to practice, and there's still a few underground midwives who are not licensed, who do not want to become a licensed midwife. They usually go back from the 60s, where midwives are like, no, I don't want to be controlled by the state, because I have rules and guidelines and things that I have to follow. So, and I'm bound by those, to practice safely and to also practice within my regs, my training. But I'm not doing something I shouldn't be doing. Like I can't do like planned breech first when the butt's coming out first. I can't do those. I can't do twins. Now I've had surprise breech where the baby just happened to be, butt first, and you just get on with it. You just get on with it, and it's part of my training. And the last surprise breech I had was beautiful. I wasn't worried at all. I was worried. It was lovely. His baby was fine. It was, so there's a lot of control going on. So control. That's how we keep people safe, because there are some midwives that really shouldn't be practicing, or they're not following their guidelines, and I think some midwives should take a good look at what they're doing, if they really should be a midwife. And that's my opinion, but I was trained really well. I was trained with the best of both worlds, and I already had medical training from what I used to do, so I kind of marry the two. I'm in the middle. I still provide good care. Yeah.
That's cool.
Great state to have a baby.
I don't know if I ever told you, but my great-grandmother on my mom's side, she was a first certified black midwife in the state of Kansas way back.
Really?
Yeah, and she had 13 children herself, but probably in Chitopa, Kansas, or in the surrounding area, because back then, if you were black, they didn't go to the white doctors. They had to find black doctors or midwives.
Right.
So if you're black, probably back then in Chitopa, she probably gave birth to you.
Wow.
She delivered to not gave birth. She delivered my mom and my mom's older sister.
Really? Oh, that's so great. There is a book about the history on the granny midwives.
Yeah.
In the South. Yeah, I actually need to read it. I haven't picked that one up yet. There's a lot of other ones that have been written that I do need to read. Oh, that's so great. Yeah. Oh my gosh, so much wisdom. And see, that's the thing where the black midwives were getting in trouble because they knew too much. The moment you know too much, that's when white people were taking away their licensing and their permission to do births, and if they did, they would get thrown in jail and just a number of things. It really feels like the 1500s where you get burned at the stake.
Yeah. I was just gonna mention that. God, what was that movie with Jack Nicholson? And he makes this comment. He's talking to, I think, Cher. I can't remember the name of the movie. And he's telling how the midwives back in the day, they got burned. They burned them and declared them witches, but it was really to get them out of the childbirthing process so men could take over.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is the truth.
Witches and they burn them to get them out of the childbirthing process. I was like, wow, what an interesting statement.
It still kind of feels like that sometimes. Like some people have a big agenda, and I think a lot of home birth midwives, I promote myself pretty well. I don't have to do very much because a lot of my referrals are word of mouth. I've really tried to work hard on developing this really good connection with my community that I don't need to be putting myself out there every twist and turn. Like, I attract a lot of good people from happy clients. If you're not happy, tell me what's going on. I need feedback. Let's talk about it. But yeah, it's if you're too big and too boisterous, if you draw too much attention to yourself, then you'll start getting people who really don't like what you do. And there's someone in particular who's on the internet that really does not like home birth and will do everything she can to destroy home birth.
Yeah.
And and that's really unfortunate because at the end of the day, it's a woman's decision. It's her body. She gets to choose where she's going to birth. It's her decision, as long as she feels like she's fully informed about all her decision making and all the options out there. No one should be governing how someone gives birth. And that's really sad when that starts to happen,
Yeah.
I see that in the hospital a lot. Like, you want a natural birth. You want intermittent monitoring. You don't want to wear the straps in the belly the whole time. You want someone to come in every hour and listen. There's lots of things that women want in the hospital. It's really hard to obtain because there's a lot of policies and procedures that happen in the hospital that the staff have to follow. So you're kind of hitting up against the wall a lot of times. It's like, well, why don't you just do a home birth or a birth center birth? Like, if you're low risk and you're healthy, there's no reason to be in the hospital. It's just fear. There's a lot of fear. It's the what ifs. I'm like, you know what? What if I'm driving to the grocery store and I don't come home? Like, you know, there's a lot of what ifs out there. You know, you can't live your life like that.
Yeah.
You just can't. So.
I really feel that we just covered the tip of the iceberg for this subject matter.
Oh my gosh.
This is really interesting, but we are at the top of the hour. So
that's too bad.
I know, time flies when you're having a good time.
I'm having a great time.
We're going to have to do it, like, at some point in time, do a part 2, because I want you to talk a little bit. I know you love your work you do, but I know you like to play, and so I want you to kind of get into some of, you guys do some camping and hiking and caving and all that, so we'll have to you get to talk about all that, because I know how much you love that.
So what's your numbers in your website so people could get in touch with you?
Yeah, so my number is 505-450-2222, and my name is Louise Self. And so my practice is High Desert Midwifery, and I'm here in Albuquerque, and you can Google me and find me on the web. And, give me a ring if you want to come and chat and learn more about it and what I do, and, to find your power in your voice and fully take charge of your pregnancy and let me know. Let's do it. Let's get you into your body.
Fantastic.
Huh? Yeah.
Fantastic. So again, everyone, this is Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective. This is Hamza.
And I'm David.
And thanks again, Louise Self. Yes, thank you so much, Louise, and thanks, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Welcome.
Bye.
Okay,
bye-bye.
Bye now.